All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is June. Wow, we're June already. June 2nd, 2018. And today we're going to finally get to that video that I'd been talking about, that Jimmy shared some of the information with me before we saw that Nick had done a video a couple days earlier. But we're going to expand on the understanding of it, because as I was doing research on it, I put this together for you guys as I shown before. But as I was going through it, there was a big thing that I realized in here that relates to Daniel 9, with the understanding that just the complete understanding, if you will, for, if you can say, our lifetimes of Daniel 9 and what's going to take place. I don't want to say like necessarily the final one, but because the Bible's going to go on forever, right? So the word will never die. So I don't want to say the final one, but most certainly the understanding to the end of tribulation, to the end of the book of Revelation, the 1,000-year millennium, to the point of the 1,000-year millennium. Because maybe there'll be more understandings in this later, right? That we just won't have any clue of. So, not in this lifetime anyways. So this one is going to be revealed. It's a big deal. I touched on it a bit in the last video, and we're going to cover it with all of this here today. There's so many layers to, well, we know as to the entire Bible. But this Daniel 9 understanding, I've taught you guys in the past. I've got videos on it where I explain that unto Messiah the Prince, they're literally going to build to Messiah the Prince. Remember, he comes at the end of the sixth seal, right? The whole world, everybody's gonna see Jesus at the end of the sixth seal, which is late year 2023 into early 24. They're going to see Jesus coming in the clouds, and everybody's going to be freaking out because his wrath is coming. Everybody's, hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. All right, and then it goes into the seventh, to the 144,000, the rapture. A lot of videos we've covered with those and the information that's in those as well. And then in chapter 8, you have the seventh seal, and that's when they get, there's 6 months of chilling in paradise. The rapture group goes to paradise. They don't go to the third heaven. They go to paradise. All right? And paradise, I believe the Mount Zion, when Jesus comes down in the mountain, that's where the rapture group is going. They do not go, I believe, to the third heaven. Well, we know from 2 Corinthians 12 that they don't go to the third heaven. The ones that go to the third heaven are the bride that goes right from the beginning. All right? But talking about what we were saying here, that everybody's going to see him at the end of the sixth seal, right? They will have seen him coming. Sorry, let me go back to Daniel. That's what it was. Right? They will have seen him coming already. So what's going to happen is that's where we get the understanding. That's where they're going to rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince, literally capital M, capital P. That's Jesus, right? So they're going to start rebuilding it, right? The 144,000 are going to do the foundation, and then we saw in Zechariah, they bring the people in and they start working. The families are there with them, right? That's not the bride. The bride is in heaven, okay? The bride will already be gone. But that's what this is going on, and this is what I've taught in the previous videos, that this here is revealed in trumpets. All right, this here we could say is trumpets. Okay, we've taught how there's one way of interpreting, which is true, and I've showed you this. It's 7 weeks, it's weeks of years. All right, and in the middle of the 7 years, 3.5 weeks in, right, that we see here, they will have rebuilt the city and the streets. Right, they're going to rebuild. They're going to rebuild Jerusalem, the temple, in probably sometime in 2024, let's say, about there, sometime in 2024, they'll start rebuilding the temple. They're not building it earlier. And I'm going to show you as we go through this There's no temple that's going to be built earlier. I was thinking maybe they're going to build one within the next couple years or so, and I don't think so. With the devastation and those things that are coming during the seals, because when they split the land, no temple is going to be there. It's going to be really devastating for a while. And the Bible doesn't show us anywhere that they're going to be rebuilding a temple before 2024, right? We've talked about this before. Even if we go into Zechariah and we see where they're starting to build, right? New Jerusalem, not New Jerusalem, sorry. Zion comes down. Jesus is returning in the year 2024, all right? And then Zechariah 8 is for the year 2025. The mountain is now somewhere here sitting on top of the mountains on the earth. And see, here you go. They're starting to rebuild the temple. See, the ones that have laid the foundation already, those are going to be the 144,000 before they were sent out. And the raptured group, right? Isn't it interesting, right? We've all been taught that rapture means, going to heaven. Rapture says nothing about going to heaven, guys. There's nowhere that says, thus shall we ever be with the Lord. Right? The church that gets raptured shall forever be with the Lord. Where's the Lord going to be, guys? He's going to be on earth. They're going to see him after the sixth seal. And people are going to be freaking out. And then there's going to be a peace that Jesus himself says he's going to do. And he even says that he's going to be the one to break it. Right? See, right here, Zechariah 11 for the year 2027. 28, 29, 30. No, 2028, 2029, 30, 31. So in 2028, 3.5 years to go, right where it should be, you have, for the forest of the vintage is come down. Satan is come down. All right? And you see down here that what's going to happen now, everybody in Jerusalem that was there, all the raptured group, everybody was there with Jesus. They're going to flee. And Jesus is going to look over them. Jesus is going to set them in a safe place. Right? That's probably when you guys are going to flee to Petra or Jordan for those that are in the rapture. But look at this. Who breaks the covenant? And I took my staff, even beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. And it was broken in that day. Jesus is the one. Oh, see, I'm working on this for you guys too. Jesus is the one that's going to break the covenant. He's going to be the one involved in making the covenant. However that's going to work. Or he's just going to declare a covenant with everybody. But then he's going to break it when Satan comes down. I know that sounds crazy. We've gone through some of this before. Jesus is coming back at the beginning of trumpets, right before the start of trumpets. He'll be here. All right? He's going to gather the 144. They're going to help gather the church in the rapture. They're going to go to Mount Zion, however that is going to be set up. They're going to go to Mount Zion. They're not the bride. Here, watch this. Let's go into... I'm already quite a few minutes into it, and I haven't gone into what I'm getting to. But in a way I have, right? In a way I have. Sorry. Coffee time. So let's have a look here. This shows it really, really nicely. All right? This is John in New Jerusalem. And he says, come hither. So the angel tells John, come hither. I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me in the spirit to a great and high mountain. This is Mount Zion. There's going to be, it appears, we read this in Micah. I'm doing a study on Micah too to see where Micah fits into this. I believe Micah starts at about the midpoint. I believe, I'm doing a lot of study on this one. But I believe Micah, those 7 chapters of Micah are 7 years as well. And they're from the midpoint of seals to the midpoint of trumpets. I believe. I still got to do some more digging, but I believe that's a possibility. And then Joel is the last 3.5 years of trumpets, right? The last three, it'll be about the last 3.5 years, 3.5 years, but probably more like 3, when the locusts, right? Right here. When the pit is opened and the locusts, right? When Satan is cast out, the pit is opened up. It'll be about 3 years, 3.5 years, somewhere in here. All right, for those last 3. It doesn't mean that it's 1 year is this and 1 year is that, right? It's not 1 seal per year or 1 trumpet per year, right? I don't believe it's that at all. But I couldn't tell you exactly. I can say these, based on what we're reading in scriptures, we can say these happen within this time frame, these happen within this time frame. And Zechariah helps us with that. Hosea helps us with that. A number of them do. Psalms, all that type of stuff, right? So John is taken to a great and high mountain. This is Mount Zion. And again, like I was saying, when you go and do a study, if you start reading into Micah, you'll see that when the Lord comes down, he's talking about when he will. Not he does come down at that point. He's talking about when he comes. It seems to do something to the tops of the mountains. So I don't know if it gets set up on the tops of the mountains. That'll be something for us to witness, right? But now watch. And he showed me that great city, the holy city, which is New Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. So see, the great mountain, Mount Zion, is already going to be on earth. And when Jesus cuts himself off, I don't know where he goes. Does he just go and stay in that high mountain when Satan gets here? I don't know how that's exactly going to work. But I'll show you how we can know for sure that that is when his cutoff is. And it was all there in front of us the whole time in the wording. All right? But what do we see? New Jerusalem, the bride doesn't come down, descend down from heaven until the end of everything. All right? Until it's all done. Why? Because the bride is protected, just like we would do here in real life. Right, guys? The first thing we're going to do is protect our wives, keep her out of all of the trouble before, or if we know that it's coming, especially, we're going to do everything we can to keep her out of the trouble, right? God's doing the same thing. Jesus is doing the same thing for his bride. So let's have a look at this here. I'll set it up here for Daniel 9. And then we'll go look at what this was about here. So what it was Jimmy called me a week ago and was telling me that when he woke up early, I guess it was Saturday morning, last Saturday, and he said, "Oh, call him right away, call him." I called him, and he told me that when he woke up, he just had this inkling to do like spirit-led to take the year that we're in and go backwards with the Daniel 9 understanding. Go backwards with the year count, the long year count of Daniel 9. So he did it, and what he realized was amazing. And we're going to go here further in detail with that. I wrote it out, so I'll explain it as I read it along the way. And then you'll see where it leads into, because here's what we're trying to figure out. More than this, we're trying to figure out, I just set up Daniel, oh well. We're trying to figure out, see, Luke doesn't talk about it. Why? Because the bride's not going to be here. But Mark, look at Mark, which is talking to the church. Remember, Luke, especially in the discourses in particular, Luke is talking to the bride, Mark is talking to the church, Matthew is talking to Judah. All right? We say church, church, lost tribes, that type of thing, all right? But let's look. See, there's an abomination of desolation spoken of in Mark and spoken of in Matthew. There's subtle differences in both of them. And there's more than one reason as to why. And we're going to show you today. In Mark, it says, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not. All right? Let him that readeth understand. And let them that be in Judea, what? Flee or fly, right? Into the mountains, run away. All right? And then when we go into, so this is a big thing to understand here too. Standing where it ought not. I believe there's going to be two understandings to all this, and I'm going to show you in a minute. I could be wrong that it's really relating to one, and I'll show you when we get to the second explanation what I'm talking about. So that was standing where it ought not, and in Matthew's version, it's stand in the holy place. Now, why is Matthew stand in the holy place? Because now that we know that the tribulation time frame is actually 14 years, now the way there is 7 years, there is a full 7 years, and Jesus is returning at the end of the 7 years, probably more like 6.5 years in, right? Jesus is returning, maybe even around the 6-year mark, to be honest with you. But he's returning right before trumpets, all right? And they're going to rebuild the city, right? They're going to rebuild the temple. So that's why you have standing in the holy place. But in Mark's, we read standing where it ought not. Now, there could be two understandings to this, because see, Matthew also has those which are in Judea flee into the mountains. So if they're speaking about two different events, why are they both fleeing from Judea into the mountains? See what I'm saying? But when we read the wording and how it's different, which is Matthew saying stand in the holy place and Mark standing where it ought not, what is that understanding? Could it be could it be that there's a dual application? Meaning this one here is clearly during trumpets when the city and when the temple has been rebuilt. All right, this one's clear. But could it be that in Mark's version, when he says standing where it ought not, that it's at the same time as this one? But because a lot of that is Gentiles, right? After the rapture, right? At the 10 and a half year mark. And they're just saying standing where it ought not. Whereas the Jews, Matthew's group, where the Jews are saying standing in the holy place, those that were raptured, and they've been there in the mountain, they've been there in Jerusalem on Mount Zion, and they're just saying it as standing where it ought not. I think that's a possibility, and you're going to understand why. One of them is because why are they both, which be in Judea, flee into the mountains? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Let's see if I can show it better with my timeline. See, with the rapture here, and they're going to go to paradise, right? They're going to go to Judea. I have the arrow going up, but see, they go to paradise. All right? So if they're going up to paradise, or going to paradise, they're getting raptured to paradise, wherever that is. And how do I say this? I'm trying to figure out how I can show it. So essentially what it is, if we go to Matthew, it's to the 10 and a half year mark that I've been telling you guys about. This is the point where she flies away into the wilderness. All right? These 3.5 years during the woes. Now, what was she doing prior to? Those that came to believe in Jesus Christ were here with Christ. In Judea, right? Not having yet fled into the mountains. Right? They were with Christ, those who believed. And paradise, I believe, is there with them at the mountain as well, at Mount Zion when he returns. So they're probably, this group here, the rapture group, is in Mount Zion. The 144,000 brought them to Mount Zion. They did their work. Then the rapture group is there doing what they do. And the 144,000, they go out now, and they're ministering and evangelizing, however you want to say it, around the world. All right? And they're going to be transported to all these different areas. Like, it's almost like I think it'll be like a teleport or whatever. As bizarre as that sounds. But it's this point here that I'm talking about. This total of 10 and a half years approximately, right here. Is it possible that Mark is talking all the way to here as well? which is why we see even in Mark's discourse, those which be in Judea flee into the mountains. I'm just saying it's a possibility, because when Messiah is cut off, and I believe it is, this is why I say there's still another layer, another level to that understanding in the in Daniel 9 and the whole explanation, right? Same with the discourse from Matthew and Mark. I think it does apply to this time. However, in Mark's, I think it also applies to here. Because there's going to be a time when they're going to want to get out, and that's when the beast, the first beast, is given power to continue 42 months. And I believe when this happens, there's going to be a lot of believers that are going to realize what has happened, and they're going to take off, and they're going to go hiding. Now, obviously, we know not all of them do, right? Because all of the killings and the beheadings and stuff that are going to happen with Christians. So, but I believe this is one of the Mark ones for flee into the wilderness. And I believe this is also a Mark one because they've been raptured now. But when Messiah is cut off, right, not for himself, which we're going to cover in Daniel, when Messiah is cut off, who's fleeing? Why, right? So then why does Mark say flee into Judea? Right? I don't know. With that one, I'm just throwing that one out there, especially with Mark. And it's just because of this. You know, as I was just showing you, it's only because of this right here. It's just this fleeing into Judea that still makes me go, is this the double understanding? Because if we go further down, look, for in those days shall be affliction such as was not, so on and so forth, right? Shall be affliction. Now the word affliction is going to mean the same as what I'm going to show you in a second, but it just says shall be affliction, right? I believe it's burden, persecution, okay? That's this one here that applies. I got them in orange so they're matching. Okay, because we can see all the different variations that the word means. I believe in this case it's speaking of this one, which would be what? That would mean this is speaking mid-seals, when the Antichrist is given power to continue 42 months. And when we go into Matthew's, again, this is where the wording changes. All right? We have this changing here, which is stand in the holy place, so we know it's going to be rebuilt. Judea, flee from Judea, that's still there. But look what it says down here. For then shall be great. I thought I had it colored. I don't. There we go. Excuse me. So, for then shall be great tribulation. Right? This one first had affliction, burden, persecution. I believe this one with the word tribulation, even though it is the same Greek word, this one is called great tribulation, great trouble. This is trumpets time when we're talking here in Matthew. So that's why I say I get a little bit torn as to, is it really a dual meaning because of Judea? But it is most certainly a separate meaning for Mark and a separate meaning for Matthew. Mark during the seals, when they're going to have to flee into the mountains, right? Run out of the cities, take off, get out, because the Antichrist is going to be given power to continue 42 months. Whereas Matthew, it's when Satan shows up. And Jesus is going to, Messiah the Prince is going to cut himself off because Satan shows up. And then you're going to have Matthew's flee into Judea. Now, let's see if we can figure out where this timing of this stuff is. This is the exciting part, which relates to this video today and what Jimmy called me on last week, or what I called him about last week. And it's this. So what he did is when he woke up, he had this, the Spirit would just led him to take the Daniel 9 of 69 weeks, right? We've all been taught, and this is a way of understanding it. This is one of the ways of understanding, okay, is we know the 69 weeks, it's times 7, just like the, here, let's go to it. right? There is more, way more than one understanding here. All right? Shall be 7 weeks. And when people see this, they say 7 specifically of a week of years, and then they do 7 times 7, so it's 49. 3 score, they say, is 60 and 2 weeks, right? But there's a reason it says 3 score. We're going to talk about that today as well. So they'll say 60 and 2, and they'll multiply that times 7, right, for the weeks, the days of 7, and it's this whole multiplication. I've never fully understood how they got it, but when you understand the teaching of it and they show you the number, it lines up perfect in BC, before Christ got there, when Christ got there, and then from Christ's death and 40 years later. And I mean, it was all, the numbers were there bang on. It was right when Jesus showed up. You know, that's what I talked about before, the Essenes. That's one of the reasons how the Essenes knew when Christ was coming. They just didn't understand how he was going to come the first time. All right? Now, for us, we've done the same thing. We've taken that same formula of calculating, and we said, okay, let's see some calculation backwards from 2018 and see if we can find where Daniel's 69 weeks starts and ends, and where Mark's, right, where Mark 13:14's abomination of desolation standing where it ought not, where that might be. All right? So if we take 69 weeks times 7 is the one everybody knows, your 483 days. Numbers 14:34 says each day for a year. There's a whole teaching on that. A lot of people have got that on there. Sometimes a day is a day. Sometimes a day is 1,000 years. Sometimes a day is a year. All right? This is, you have to discern these things. This is a day for years. So when you go into 2018, where we are now, and you minus 483, you get the year 1535. So we say, okay, well, did anything happen? And this is where Jimmy started freaking out when he called me. Did anything happen in the year 1535 that would say, okay, we do have a starting point. Let's see if this makes sense, right? We have Daniel 9:25, right? Let's see what should have happened at the 69 weeks. So 7 weeks and 60 and 2, so 69 weeks total. The city and the street shall be built again. All right? The city, what is it? Sorry. The street and the wall shall be built again, even in troublous times. All right? Let's see. Let's have a look. So we did a Google search, and all I typed in, this is what Jimmy did, and I did the same thing, is Google search 1535 Jerusalem. That's it. The first thing to come up is called Walls of Jerusalem. And I'll take you there. I've got a link on here that you guys can go to, but all you have to do is type in 1535 Jerusalem, and you'll see what comes up. All right, let's go to the actual one. All right, here it is. Wikipedia, Walls of Jerusalem. Look at this. In 1535, when Jerusalem was part of the Ottoman Empire, right? Sultan Suleiman I ordered the ruined city walls to be rebuilt. And there's a picture. All right? I know with when Nick did it, he's sitting right there in Jerusalem in the park on Mount Zion. He's pointing to the walls, right? That'd be an awesome way to do a teaching on it. So this is what happened 483 years ago from when? 2018, guys. Today. Remember I said the escape. It's all going to begin this year. And I believe it has started. The bride is going, and I absolutely believe the bride is going to go at Pentecost this year. I know for those of you who haven't heard my channel before, I believe that we haven't reached Pentecost yet with some new understanding that's been revealed, that this year was a year before the spring of this year, that there was the quote-unquote 13th month. It's just because of 2 full moons in a month, right? When there's blood moons in a year, or sorry, blue moons in a year, depending on where they fall in the year, that is our Gregorian calendar telling us that an additional month is added. And it's not that there's going to be this made-up 13th month. It's because 2 full moons fall in the same calendar month on our Gregorian one. All right? And it turns out that it lines up with when a 13th month should be added in a year on the Hebrew calendar. And it lines up with the star spike and with the sun and the moon, right? We know that it's the sun, moon, and stars that reveal everything if we know how to read them. And we've talked about that on a previous video from what we learned on somebody else's channel that we've done a lot of studying on. And there's one of our brothers in Christ here on this channel who's studying that guy's channel more for greater detail, and he'll share it with me, and as I come to know it, I'll share it with you guys as well. So I don't believe we have come to Pentecost yet. And understanding how to properly count from Passover to unleavened, of course, that's the easy one, when the counting of the Omer begins. All right? So it appears we're looking at around mid-July for the escape of the bride. I believe the escape is this year. I don't understand any other feast outside of Pentecost where the bride is going to go. When the rapture happens in the year 2024, I believe it will also be at Pentecost. Now, might it be at the Pentecost plus a month? You know what I mean? And the reason I say that is for the second Passover. Is there a possibility there? I don't know. But remember, the bride is part of the church. We're the first fruits of the church. So we're 10% of the 90 that was left back. All right, there was 100% of the church of which we're part of. We're the first fruits of it. We're the 10%. And the other 90 is going to remain during the trumpets. During seals, during the tribulation. So I believe when they go, they're also going to go at Pentecost. All right. So when we look at this and going back to this and we do this calculation, we see that Daniel 9's 69 weeks lands exactly on this year. More evidence, guys. More and more and more and more. It just keeps coming. Right? Psalms 18, Psalms 118, Psalms 124, Psalms 24. Right? It's 2018 to 2024. A lot of you guys already know that, right? That Psalms 100 and was the year 2000 and so on and so forth. Right? It's been talked about for 60, 70 years about how it correlates. All right? Or 40, 50 years at least, how they correlated the years to events that have happened. And that Psalms 118 is the year 2018. And I've shown in 2018 that that's the escape year. And if you go to if you go to Psalms 18, you see that Psalms 18 literally tells us what Psalms 118, like from one verse in Psalms 118, it's like everything that happens in between it. So there's one verse in Psalms 118 that talks about it's kind of like a big overview of everything that takes place in Psalms 18, which is what's going to happen at the very beginning when it really begins, guys, when the earth shakes and quakes and eruptions and all these things take place. The bride will still be here. I don't believe she'll be here for long. We're going to see it, but we're going to cry out to him. He's going to hear us. It's going to be dark, and he's going to come and get us. All right? And look, Daniel 9:25 calculates to 2018. But now let's go a little bit further. Okay? Then from that point, so here we are in 1535. What about the 7 weeks? What if we break it down now and we say, okay, we've got the 69 weeks. Let's go from having gone back, let's go from having gone in reverse, say, okay, we've counted these together. Now let's go back and just take the 7 weeks, which is the 7 times 7 in this understanding. So we've gone back the 483 years. All right. Now, what about from that starting point of 1535? What if we go forward? Can we see anything that relates to 49 years later, which is the 7 times 7, right? 7 weeks, 7 times 7, 49 days or years, brings us to 1535 plus 49 years, brings us to 1584. So we do a Google search of the year 1584 Jerusalem. And the first thing that comes up is this right here. It's a map. And this is the fourth thing that came up on the Google search. And it's the in Commons in Wikipedia. And it's the finished map of Jerusalem. It's the finished map of Jerusalem. It's the main thing that comes up in the search. See? 1584 Jerusalem. What comes up? Maps. This one has a lot more. Here, right here. This one here. It's the first maps of Jerusalem after the walls and everything had been rebuilt. There's a whole bunch of pictures you can go do that you'll find on maps that had the rebuilt Jerusalem. Just like what? What we were looking here, 7 weeks. See, 7 weeks, the street and the wall shall be built again, even in troublous times. And then what? Look, see, a comma and separating the two events. We're gonna cover this today in a double fulfillment of what's coming. So we go back the total of this portion and this portion, and we've added them together for 69 weeks, and it goes back to 1535. Okay? Then we say, okay, to start it off of the total, there should be something of events for 7 weeks when the street shall be built again, and the wall during this time frame of 7 weeks, which is the 7 times 7. All right? We do that, and we get a picture of the rebuilt city streets, right? And the wall being rebuilt. And then what? And 62 weeks. So now 62 weeks later, see? And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. Well, let's have a look, guys. How is Messiah going to be cut off? What are we talking about? Okay, let's look now at Daniel from 1584. So we've added the 49 years from the 1535. And we say, okay, now we have to add the 62 weeks. So from the time that we have images of the city and the street having been rebuilt, and the walls, I always say the city, but the walls and the streets being rebuilt, let's go 62 weeks and finish the rest of Daniel here. 62 weeks times 7 is 434 days. Days of years. We're now Daniel 26. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. If we add the 434 to 1584, of course we get to where we started. 2018. How is that possible? This calculation was already done in history. It was already done before Christ came, and this same formula for calculating was already done when he got there. It equaled the time when Jesus showed up. And here we are doing a calculation backwards to see if there was anything revealed, anything that happened that we can say 2018 is going to be the year that kicks this all off. Is there anything? And it lands on the year when there was a declaration by the Ottoman Empire, by the king there, to rebuild it. To rebuild it. And they did. 49 years later, there just so happens to be maps on a search of Jerusalem for 1584, which is 49 years later. And the whole search brings up everything to do with maps of Jerusalem. Why? Because they had finished rebuilding it. And then we do a search 62 weeks later, which is the 62 times 7, which is 434 years later, and we're in 2018. And what does it say at this time? Messiah shall be cut off. Do you get that? That's essentially, that's recap to what I said here. Do you get that? 2018 and Messiah shall be cut off. He's cut off this year. Because what's going to happen? Soon as the bride is gone, Messiah's cut off. Right? Is the Spirit, not the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit is taking the bride to Christ when we go up to the third heaven? Right? Yes, of course, there's salvation. The spirits of the Lord that are standing before the throne, that are standing before God, the 7 spirits of the 7 churches are going to be sent out. But Messiah shall cut himself off. And it equals the exact count that brings us to 2018. What happens after that? Right? He shall confirm a covenant. Somebody's going to come, right? If Messiah is going to be cut off, but why? Not for himself, but for the people of the prince, the little p prince, the bad guy that's coming, the Antichrist in this case. Right? So what's going to happen next? Messiah is cut off, but not for himself, but for the people of the prince that shall come. And he's going to confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. We're all taught that this 1 week, this confirmed covenant for 1 week, is the one that the Antichrist is going to confirm, right? He's going to make a covenant for 1 week, and then in the midst of it, he's going to cut it off, right? In the midst. This is seals. This is the one that we've been taught, that the churches have been talking about, right? The Antichrist is going to confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. They're right, but they're not complete, guys. This is going to be, this is a video that's going to take some rewatching, some real patient listening and understanding, because guys, I'm only halfway. All right? So then what comes after this point of 2018 when Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, but for the people and the prince who shall come? What's left? Or not left, but what comes next? 7 years. The covenant for 1 week. He shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abomination, right? He shall make it desolate. What's this talking about? Marks. 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 Right here. Marks, abomination of desolation. This is when they're going to need to flee. When the church, when they see him get power to continue for 42 months. That's what this is talking about. Remember, for those who don't know, watch the video I did. That's 42 months, 1,260 days, and times, and half a time. That's the title of the video. It is such an important video to watch. There's a reason they're spoken of in 3 different ways, because they are 3 separate time frames. The tribulation time frame, from the moment the bride goes, probably even right now, from Passover on May 14th, from the beginning of the 70 years, I believe the first seal has been broken. And that right now there's a gathering, there's preparing of the bride that's going on. Yes, it's been happening for the last 7 years, but now is that white horse rider gathering the bride right now. I truly, truly believe it, because we know in Revelation that there's a time during the white horse rider where there is conquering and to conquer taking place. Right? This is a time frame here. Conquering and to conquer. We don't know how long that's going to be, but we do know that it's what? Getting victory. For the overcomers, for those who are getting victory. He's coming for those. Getting victory for those that have overcome. How long is this going to take? I think it's only going to go to Pentecost. And then the bride's gone. That's why when you see this on my diagram here, I have the bride leaving before the first horse rider. I've changed these up more than once. You know, they're so close together they can kind of almost be at the same time, because they're only going to be, what, month and a half maybe, give or take. Right? So they're really close together, slightly before, slightly after, right? So this is what I'm getting at. This is right now. When we go into Revelation 11, again, this is why I say you want to watch my video with the 42 months, 1260 days, and time times and half a time. This here that's being spoken of, this measuring of the temple of God, right? And the altar, look what the word altar means. A place of sacrifice, but look at the root word. Go back one, 2378. A sacrifice, or the act, or the victim. This is the killings of the Christians taking place. See? And them that worship therein. Where's the temple of God right now? During the time of the seals, and right now during the church age? Because the church age, during the time of the Gentiles, is still during the seals. We are the temple. Those that believe in Jesus Christ are the temple. And they're the ones who are going to be given over, tread underfoot for 42 months. When? When the Antichrist is given power to continue 42 months. To continue. This is something that everybody, virtually everybody, misses. To continue 42 months. He had power already. He rises up. He defeats, there's war. He's really good at war, that he's able to end up stopping the war, something with him having stopped the war. Then the second beast, the false prophet, gets everybody worshiping him, right? And the dragon gave him his power. We already know that. And they worship the beast. So when we go further down here, we see that the second beast has everybody worship the first beast, and it says whose deadly wound was healed, which means the second beast comes into power somewhere in here too, before the deadly wound. Because when the deadly wound happens, presumably sometime during the war, he has everybody worship him. Why? Because people are saying, who is like him? Who is able to make war with him? See that? Who is able to make war with this guy? Meaning what? He is the one that stopped the war. He's also the one that probably through him a lot of the wars began. But he's given power to get going. All right? The dragon gave him his power and his seat and his authority. And then he gets a great head wound during the war, which is this is the red seal, the second rider, right? The red horse rider, the second seal. He gets a head wound during the war, and he's healed. However this is going to work out and play out, but he's healed, and everybody says ooh and ah, because the second beast that's there says we should worship him. Look what he was able to do. Stop the wars, do all these things. He was healed of whatever this wound is. And so everybody whose name is not written in the book of life worships him. And then what? Then he's given power to continue 42 months. So he's given additional power to keep going. And that's what everybody forgets when they're trying to understand the time frame and the discernment with seals compared to trumpets. Because it is 14 years. It is not 7 years. Seals is going to be a total of 7 years. Trumpets is going to be a total of 7 years. Is it going to be less? Yes. Right? You're going to have the 6 months of the peace, the half hour of silence. You're going to have another 6 months over here, which is right after the 6th seal, right? Or sorry, after the 6th trumpet, which is, I think, Revelation 10 talks about it. All right? But see, the Antichrist shows up here. He's the one that Zechariah 1 for 2018 says was among the trees, right? The full moon, the blood red moon that happened January 31st on the Feast of Trees, the Festival of Trees, Tu B'Shavat. It was a super blood moon. He's here somewhere, and he's going to be revealed after we go, and tribulation is going to be kicking off. War is going to begin here, and then he's going to be given power to continue 42 months. At this point here, this is the point that we're talking about with Mark, that the church needs to flee and take off into the mountains. Because when this guy here, and everybody starts saying ooh and ah over this guy, and he gets power to continue, the purposeful, I call it purposeful, beheadings of Christians is going to take place. All right? See, that's what we were talking about here. Revelation 11, 1 through 2. Measure the temple, the altar, and them that worship therein. That's those in their body worshiping Christ. See which temple is spoken of? That's before the midpoint, 3.5 years into seals, when he, the Antichrist, is given power to continue 42 months. This is the approximate time of the pale horse. I've taught this in my 14-year tribulation, not what you expected, right? In the one with the whole breakdown, a 2-hour video about this one here. Oops. About this one here. All right? So it's about the time of the pale horse. This is when the beheadings of Christians happens, at the time of the pale horse. So sometime before it, a little bit before, is when he's going to get his power to continue 42 months. All right? When purposeful or willful killing of Christians will begin. You know, the beheadings, the imprisonment, the beheadings, all that stuff. Probably the time of the mark of the beast, but the mark of the beast might even come sooner, I'd say. Probably, at the black horse rider. All right? Once he is given power to continue for 42 months. To continue is the key. To continue 42 months. And also the point, I believe, of Mark 13, verse 14. The church's time to flee into the mountains. All right? Hopefully that wasn't too difficult to follow. It's a lot, guys. I understand if you need to pause it and go back and rewind and whatever you guys need to do, it is worth understanding for those who are left. This is information that is going to save millions and millions of people's lives if they understand when they must absolutely flee and get out. Right? Especially for Christians. It's going to be a brutal time. It's going to be brutal. It even tells you it's going to be brutal. It says don't return to your house. Don't take anything out of your house. Don't go in for a moment. If you're out of your house, don't even return to it. Leave. And I believe this is the time that we're talking about here, right before the pale horse, that this is the time here of affliction, and when the beheadings of Christians and it's going to make World War II look like a walk in the park. And I don't mean that in a negative way, guys, please. I know that was brutal, obviously. This is going to be many more times brutal on the sheer numbers of people that this is going to happen to. Tens and tens of millions of people are going to die. Right? Here, let's give you a little idea. This is the Revelation 6. Have you guys really lately looked close at the fourth horse rider, the pale horse rider? the fourth part of the earth is given over to the pale horse rider to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. A fourth of the earth. A quarter of the earth. Done. 1.5 billion or so people at that point. You get it? It's going to be horrendous. Okay? So now, what about when we go now into Daniel? What about the rest of the understanding? And I'll try to cover this as quickly as I can, but as clearly as I can. What about the understanding now for what I was telling you guys for the trumpets? Well, wait till you see this. It's just, it's unbelievable. The layers and being able to understand the layers is crazy. Okay, watch this. So this one, we saw that it actually meant a week, and it's 7 days, so people say 7 years. This was the proper understanding, and this is the one that's going to apply to seals. All right? It's the application and what's coming to the portion of the church, of the lost sheep. All right? This is the seals one, the understanding we just shared. What I'm going to share with you now is the calculation to the understanding of trumpets. And it's amazing. The other ones were multiples of the days into the years. These are going to be strictly, as it says, 7 weeks, and they're called weeks of years. 70 doesn't only mean 60. See, they say it says it means 60 here, but that's not the only understanding. Right? I've talked about it before, and I'm going to show you a diagram for it. You know, it's like marking. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, line across, that's 5. Right? I'm scoring them off. I'm scoring, right? I'm going to score this one, right? I'm marking them off. That is what this score also means. Here, let's go to it here. I'll show you it right here. In Genesis. What was this one? Oh, that was the other one where I showed you. So in Genesis 15, this is what I wanted to show you. So let's go to Genesis 15:5 in our favorite program, eSword. Everybody should have this program that I'm using here. You're going to get word definitions and multiply your understanding like never before. So here we are in Genesis 15:5. Okay? And tell the stars if thou wilt. So, and count, number the stars, if you will, if thou be able to number them. Right? Go ahead, tell them. Go mark them off. See? To score with a mark, meaning to tally. Right? I'll show you like this. This is what it's saying. Right? To mark them off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to another stars group. 1, 2, 3. You know what I'm saying? That's what Daniel is talking about here. That is another understanding in Daniel, and this one is how it's going to relate to trumpets. All right, so back to Daniel 9. And so when we do this count, we say, okay, we can do that same count, and we end up in 2018. All right, watch this. 70 weeks or 70 years are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. All right? Israel has been back for 70 years. All right? Now watch this. From the going forth of the commandment to restore and to rebuild and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 years and 3.5 years. The city and the street shall be built again, the street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. You see that? 7 years, 3.5 years, it's going to get rebuilt again. And after the 3.5 years, meaning 10.5 years, 7 and 3.5, 10.5 years later, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. Here we go again, right back into it. Well, what happens at 10.5 years? Here's your first 7 years, 3.5 years. Messiah is cut off, but not for himself, but for the people of the little p prince that shall come. When Satan is cast out, when he has lost his battle in heaven, when he has lost his battle in heaven, and the first woe comes, and the pit gets opened up, my fingers in the wrong spot. 10.5 years. I've been showing you guys this for so long. Let's go into this one. Now you can see exactly how it lines up. Watch. Let's go into Psalms 90 verse 10. I show it all the time, but guess what? I caught something else. Two things, in fact. Watch this. The days of our years shall be 70. This one is the 70, meaning 60. It can mean 60, and it could mean a scoring and a mark, as in 1, 2, 3. All right? 70 years and 10, so 70 years. And if by reason of strength they're 80 years, that strength is labor and sorrow, is tribulation. All right? But look at this. Remember, if you guys have been watching me for a little while, I was talking in videos a few months ago, a lot I talk about this, that even though this is from 70 to 80 and that's 10 years, that I'm saying it's probably going to be more or less like 10.5 years. It's going to be sometime in the 10 years and change. And the reason is because when I was showing you guys the charts, knowing that it's 14 years, you have 7 years, right, to here, and then you have 3.5. So this is 10.5 years to the time when Satan shows up. When Satan is cast out of heaven, when he loses his battle against Michael, and he's come down and he's got a short time, and the pit gets opened up, and the last 3 trumpets go, right? The time of the fifth trumpet of the woe, woe, woes, when Messiah shall be cut off, it's about 10.5 years. I've been explaining that for a long time now. Well, look at this. Here's your 10 years. 70, so 70. And if by reason of strength they're 80, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, tribulation. But look, for it is soon cut off. Not right away cut off, soon cut off. This is your 10 years, 70 to 80. Your soon is your about 6 months later, for your total of 10.5 years. And what does it say? Guys, same words. So there's your 10, there's your 6 months, and the cut off. All right? Watch this. We saw the exact same thing here in Daniel. Watch this. This is the trumpets understanding, remember. All right? So we're at the 70 years. You're going to have 7 years, 3.5, so you're going to have 10.5 years. And after the 10.5 years, Messiah shall be cut off. 10.5 years, cut off. Psalms 90 and 10. 10.5 years, cut off. And then what? And we fly away. Where do they go? Where do they fly away? It's Revelation 12. Right? It's the end of Revelation 12. This is the time, and half a time when Daniel says, how long, Lord, shall this be? This is when Satan gets here. This is when in Matthew, in his abomination of desolation, this and we fly away time, right? For the times and half a time when they fly into the wilderness on the wings of a great eagle. This is the times and half a time that's being spoken about. The last 3.5 years, which is their running away time. All right? Where they're going to be nourished in that wilderness, probably going down into Egypt. Right? Or maybe Jordan, whatever it was. Right? This is when they go. They're going to be given manna, whatever else it's going to be. They're going to be taken care of. But what does that mean for Mark's group? If Mark was there with Christ and now suddenly Messiah is going to be cut off, right? Let's go back down here. So now we're at the point of what? And Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, but for the people of the prince who should come. Right? You have the the time times and half a time where they've now fled. That's what this is about right here. Right? They're going to flee. He's going to pour after them a flood. Remember Revelation 12? The Messiah is going to open up the earth, and they're going to be able to flee. And Satan is going to make war against the 144,000, the remnant. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. And then this is the Antichrist, is going to confirm a covenant with many for 1 year. Remember, this time it literally means 7 weeks of years, 3.5 weeks of years, a week of years, 1 year, 7 years, 3.5 years. That's what this is talking about. In the other understandings, it's always been multiples of the 7 times 7, and they've all been true. They've been accurate. This is the final one. From the beginning of when all of it. And this final one here, how do we know that this understanding is correct? It goes right back to a teaching we've done in the past. Genesis 31 with Jacob, right? Jacob works 7 years for one wife. He works 7 years for another wife. See, now he's talking here in Genesis 31:41. He's worked 21 years for his father-in-law. We know that. He works 7 for his first bride, for Leah. He works another 7 years for Rachel, and that's why he says here, see, thus I have been 20 years, we're going to explain that, in thy house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters. 7 years for the bride, which is the bride who is going. That's the 10% that gets to escape. That's the last 7 years that the Holy Spirit has been working for the bride. All right? Now the seal, I believe, is broken, and the bride, after all the gathering and getting the victory, is going to be taken at Pentecost. This year, 2018, give or take around mid-July. And then he works another 7 years for who? For the rest of the church. All right? That's your next 7 years, and then the rapture of the church happens. But now there's still 7 more years, just like we're talking about now. We're talking about the last 21 years, the last 7 years of the 21, right? And what does he say here? If you go back and read in Genesis 29, you know that he's worked for him for 21 years. So why is he saying here 20 and this one's only 6? Because in the final year, they make a covenant. See that? You understand? There's so much understanding here, guys, in this video. I know it's a lot to follow, especially if you're new to this. Just take your time. Always go to these scriptures. Go to them yourselves and see the understanding. Follow the trail. Pause it and think over it. Use this program to get the understandings of the words and the meanings. Right? It's because they make a covenant in the final year. This is when Satan is going to make a covenant in the final year. And you know what else it means? There's a covenant here as well. Because this also, remember the layers and layers and layers. When are they going to rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince? After they see him at the end of seals. And they're going to rebuild the city and the streets and everything in trumpets. The first 3.5 years of trumpets. So you have the first 7 years of seals, and then they're going to be building it during the 3.5 years, the first 3.5 years of trumpets. And once that's done, Jesus is going to cut himself off during trumpets. See, he's going to cut himself off. See, and after 62 weeks, the 3.5 years, Messiah. Shall Messiah be cut off? Capital M, Messiah. Watch. We showed you this earlier. Messiah said he's going to cut himself off. Zechariah, this is 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. This is when he returns to the Mount of Olives. This is when he raptures them. This is when the Mount Zion is there. This is when Satan shows up. And Messiah is going to break this covenant after 3.5 years into trumpets. Watch. 3.5 years into trumpets is right here, 2028. There's Satan that comes down. For the forest of the vintage is come down. There's a voice of howling. This is when Satan comes. I say this is when you even see, if you study at all, some things in Nostradamus, right? The dog's howling, right? The big dog howling all night. That's this time when Satan shows up. And then what does Jesus do? Right? He's got to protect them. They're going to all now flee. See, he's going to feed them when they flee out of Jerusalem. And then what is he going to do? That I might break my covenant which I made with the people. And it was broken in that day. Which day? Exact one I'm showing you right here. Middle of trumpets. Messiah is going to break this covenant. You can even use this one and say in the midst of it, Messiah is going to cut it off. Yeah, you can say that too. Because Jesus is the one who's going to do this covenant with men when he comes at the 3.5 year mark, or he's the one that's going to declare it, and then he's the one that's going to break it in the middle of trumpets when he leaves because Satan shows up, right? Satan's been cast down. Where, like I said earlier at the beginning, where does he go at this? I don't know. Where Mount Zion, what happens? The hiding, does it leave? Right? We know that it somehow leaves, and I would imagine that the church, the other at the rapture group, that when those guys leave, they'll be with them, right? Because they shall forever be with the Lord. So wherever that goes, does it just kind of disappear? Does it get hidden? I don't know. But he's going to cut himself off and break the covenant in 2028. And at the same time, you can also look at it another way, which is when Satan shows up, Messiah's been cut off. There's 2.5 years right here. So after 3.5, by the time he finishes making war, right? When Satan shows up and he turns his attention and goes after the remnant of the people that we read in Revelation 12, he's going to make war with them. How long is he going to make war with them? About 2 years, 2.5 years, right? Because it'll be at the end of the 6th trumpet when it says when they die. They're not dying right away. You got to read it carefully. You read and then you see it's the end of the 6th trumpet. See, and then shall he confirm a covenant. Just like we read in Genesis here, Genesis 31. Then shall there be a covenant. It'll be a covenant in the final year. And then Satan's going to break that in the midst of it. And then he's going to get bound and cast in, right? The whole thing. First of all, well, he's going to break that 1 year covenant at the end. And when he breaks it with 6 months left to go, he's going to break that covenant. And for 6 months, I believe it might be 5 months, 7 months, about 6 months, the bowls are going to be poured out upon him, upon all those people that are on Satan's side, right? For all those crazies, all the Nephilim, however all that's going to play out, guys, it's going to be really twisted, crazy, sick stuff, and it's only going to be for those who at no point came to understanding and believing Jesus Christ, who at no point gave their life to the Lord, who survived the billion-plus deaths and more that come during trumpets. It's not going to be a very large group left, right? They're going to go to make war against the 144,000 who are still bringing people in, right? They're going to be given power over scorpions and over serpents and over all sorts of things, those guys. So they're not going to have to worry about being killed, right? And then in the midst of that final year, like we read in Genesis 31, Satan is going to break that covenant, and right, because it'll be when? It'll be after the 2 witnesses have been killed. He's going to make covenant for 1 year. In the midst of it, he's going to break it, and it's going to cause the pouring upon the desolate. It's going to be 6 months approximately, maybe 5 months or so, of the bowls being poured out. And then in the year 2031, watch this. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Boom. 2031. Hosea and Zechariah, the only 2 books in the Old Testament that are 14 years and give you the layout from 2 different perspectives of what's going to take place during those 14 years. From Hosea 1 saying, go get your bride, to Zechariah 14 saying his feet now on the Mount of Olives. Guys, it is this year. I don't know how much more I could say that it's 2018. We just saw this calculation here today, right? 2018 backwards to 1535, and it was a declaration being given and ordered to rebuild the wall and the streets of the ruined city of Jerusalem. So we take that forward, and we see 49 years later, the multiple of 7, that it's been completed and rebuilt. And then 62 weeks of years later brings us to where we are today. And the seals are about to begin, if not already the first one has been opened. Takes us into the 7 years of seals, followed by the next understanding of the interpretation for Daniel 9 from 2024 to 2031. And then I wanted to finish with this. Have you guys ever thought or ever wondered about Jesus' ministry? He only did 3.5 years. There's very few things in the Bible that are 3.5 years. 7 years of this, 7 years of that, 7 of this, multiples of 7, 7 this, 7 that, 7 days. Jesus is coming to finish his ministry. He's doing 3.5 more years, the first 3.5 years of trumpets. Even during troublous times, it says, remember? Even during troublous times. Trumpets are going to be troublous times, right? Hey, we don't want to forget about that part. Trumpets are still going to be troublous times. Right? The first angel sounded a great mountain. Oh, how about that? There's your great mountain. Is this not New Jerusalem? Great mountain. Remember we were reading about that? Is this the great mountain, which would be what? At some point in the year 2025? And the second angel sounded? Just saying. Right? Great star. Wormwood. I mean, it's going to be brutal during this time too. But that's why a lot of people are going to be coming to Christ during trumpets. Jerusalem is going to be massive. In Israel, the land is going to expand. And it's going to get rebuilt. The temple is going to be built. And somehow he's going to be either hanging out in that temple, which again, I'm not going to keep rambling, but I'll finish with this. why is it that the 144,000, and I looked, and lo, the Lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him the 144,000. Right? They're standing on Mount Zion with him. And what does it say? These are they which follow the Lamb wheresoever he goes. You get it? Because he's going to be here at trumpets. He's going to be seen in the clouds late 2023 into 2024. I believe it's going to be late 2023 at the end of the sixth seal. It lines up with so many parts, guys. You know, I can make this video another hour easy. But there's so much in this video. I'm not going to drag it out any longer for you guys. I really wanted to show you guys the unbelievableness of this count that brings us right to where we are today. We take it backwards, and then we see where it lands, and then from where it lands, we see if it got rebuilt, and then we see from when it got rebuilt, those next 3.5, or in that case, the 62, which is the multiples of 7, and it takes us to 2018, and it says, then Messiah shall be cut off, and then we get the understanding of it in the years for the time of trumpets, and the actual year count of it, and it lands exactly in what Zechariah, in what Daniel's talking about, in what I've been showing you guys of the 14 years of all of it. And it breaks it up in the sense that it's after the 7 years that go first. Yet, within the mystery of Daniel 9, the first 7 years were also in it. Crazy. As well as Jesus when he first came. As well as pointing to right now and landing at 2018. Which is exactly what I've been showing everybody. It's 2018. Guys, I'd almost say it's perfect. I don't have another year for you guys after 2018. Is it possible it's 2019? Because we're not really 2019, but in our calendar, 2019 in the Gregorian calendar. And maybe it's just later in the actual year, which is spring to spring. Man, it's possible. I don't see it though. I see 2018 this year, this time, Pentecost. All right, guys, I keep saying it, but there was a lot in this video, so please take your time to go through it. Don't just skim through it, guys. This is going to be information in here that's going to save millions of people if they have the foresight to run, when to run, to understand what is coming and when, to have also for you guys to go and print this off, to give people an idea of what's coming. I am going to do more to this, but I'm going to post it like this for now, like I usually do. You can always go in the About Us, About Ministry Revealed section and print it off there if it's not in the description box. You know, we want to add here that when Messiah comes, right? We want to add here that when Messiah is cut off. All right? There's other things that we want to add in here as well. But it hasn't thrown off all of this understanding in the months since this was put together with the help of Linda. This has not changed. None of this timing of when these things happen has changed. Like I said, there might be a difference of 3 months either way, you know, maybe up to 6 month difference, but at most, I don't even believe that's 100% true. Maybe like a 6 month thing in here, but now we find out that Jesus is returning to Mount Zion. It doesn't change anything that I had in here. See that? It doesn't change it. It doesn't change any of the new understanding that's been revealed. It adds to the spaces. And unfortunately, it's only one piece of paper, so I'm not going to keep adding, right? But there is a couple more things that we're going to add here. All right? So guys, the video has gotten long, and I don't want to keep rambling. So with that, guys, share this video. Let's get this out to as many people as we can. There's so much revealed on this channel, guys. Let's get this understanding out there. Let's let people see it and hear it, and let them know to take their time in it. Tell them to get this program, eSword. It's a multiplier of an understanding. All right? With that, guys, I hope this blesses you. I hope this reaches you and reaches many, many others as well. I love you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.